Hare Krishna everyone, and we are back with the Easy Journey to Other Planets by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, page number 4. How can the antimaterial particle be explained? We have experience with material particles or atoms, but we have no experience with antimaterial atoms. However, the Bhagavad Gita gives the following vivid description of the antimaterial particle. This antimaterial particle is within the material body. Because of the presence of this antimaterial particle, the material body is progressively changing from childhood to boyhood, from boyhood to youth, to old age. After which, the antimaterial particle leaves the old, unworkable body and takes up another material body. This description of a living body confirms the scientific discovery that energy exists in two forms. When one of them, the antimaterial particle, is separated from the material body, the latter becomes useless for all purposes. As such, the antimaterial particle is undoubtedly superior to the material energy. Quote, "No one therefore should lament for the loss of material energy. All varieties of sense perception in the categories of heat and cold, happiness and distress are but interactions of material energy which come and go like seasonal changes. The temporary appearance and disappearance of such material interactions confirms that the material body is formed of a material energy, inferior to the living force or jiva energy. Any intelligent man who is not disturbed by happiness and distress, understanding that they are different material phases resulting from the interactions of the inferior energy, is competent to regain the antimaterial world, where life is eternal, full of permanent knowledge and bliss." Unquote. The antimaterial world is mentioned here, and in addition, information is given that in the antimaterial world there is no seasonal fluctuation. Everything there is permanent, blissful, and full of knowledge. But when we speak of it as a world, we must remember that it has forms and paraphernalia of various categories beyond our material experience. Quote, "The material body is destructible, and as such it is changeable and temporary. So is the material world. But the anti-material living force is non-destructible, and therefore it is permanent. Expert scientists have thus distinguished the different qualities of the material and antimaterial particles as temporary and permanent, respectively." Unquote. The discoverers of the two forms of matter have yet to find out the qualities of antimatter. But a vivid description is already given in the Bhagavad Gita as follows. The scientist can make further research on the basis of this valuable information. Quote, "The antimaterial particle is finer than the finest of material particles. This living force is so powerful that it spreads its influence all over the material body. The antimaterial particle has immense potency in comparison to the material particle, and consequently, it cannot be destroyed." Unquote. Thus, this is but the beginning of the description of the antimaterial particle in the Bhagavad Gita. It is further explained as follows. The finest form of the antimaterial particle is encaged within the gross and subtle material bodies. Although the material bodies, both gross and subtle, are subject to destruction, the finer antimaterial particle is eternal. One's interest, therefore, should be in this eternal principle." Unquote. The perfection of science will occur when it is possible for the material scientists to know the qualities of the antimaterial particle and liberate it from the association of non-permanent material particles. Such liberation would mark the culmination of scientific progress. There is partial truth in the scientist's suggestion that there may exist another world consisting of antimaterial atoms, and that a clash between the material and antimaterial worlds will result in the annihilation of both. There is a clash which is continually going on. The annihilation of the material particles is taking place at every moment, and the non-material particle is striving for liberation. This is explained in the Bhagavad Gita as follows. Quote, "The non-material particle, which is the living entity, influences the material particle to work. This living entity is always indestructible. As long as the non-material particle is within the lump of material energy, known by the names of gross and subtle bodies, then the entity is manifest as a living unit. In the continuous clashing between the two particles, the non-material particle is never annihilated. No one can destroy the antimaterial particle at any time, past, present, or future." Unquote. Therefore, we think that the theory maintaining that the material and antimaterial worlds may clash, resulting in the annihilation of both worlds, is correct only within the context of the scientist's limited definition of antimatter. The Bhagavad Gita explains the nature of the antimaterial particle which can never be annihilated. Quote, "The fine and immeasurable antimaterial particle is always indestructible, permanent, and eternal. After a certain period, however, its engagement by material particles is annihilated. This same principle also operates in the case of the material and antimaterial worlds. No one should fear the annihilation of the antimaterial particle, for it survives the annihilation of material worlds." Unquote. Everything that is created is annihilated at a certain stage. Both the material body and the material world are created, and they are therefore subject to annihilation. The antimaterial particle, however, is never created, and consequently, it is never annihilated. This is also corroborated in the Bhagavad Gita. Quote, "The antimaterial particle, which is the vital force, is never born or created. It exists eternally. It has neither birth nor death. It is neither repeatedly created nor repeatedly destroyed. It is eternally existing, and therefore it is the oldest of the old, and yet it is always fresh and new. Although the material particle is annihilated, the antimaterial particle is never annihilated." As a side point, really, I love these descriptions of the soul and the spirit and antimaterial particle, especially since that's who we are. Because it just really inspires and makes you feel empowered, I'd say. This immediately reminds me of that verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam which says that material energy makes us cripple. It's destructible, it's temporary, it's full of ignorance, and our true nature is like eternal, right? Full of knowledge and bliss. So really, it's nice to keep reminding yourself who you really are. I especially like how in Chaitanya Charitamrita it says that the soul is more brilliant than millions of suns. Can you imagine? You as a soul, you're more brilliant than millions of suns. Like sun, globe. Like, it's just... okay. Okay, so the principle is also applicable to the antimaterial universe as well as to the antimaterial particle. When the material universe is annihilated, the antimaterial universe exists in all circumstances. This will be explained in more detail later. The scientist may also learn the following from the Bhagavad Gita. Quote, "The learned man who knows perfectly well that the antimaterial particle is indestructible knows that it cannot be annihilated by any means." The atomic scientist may consider annihilating the material world by nuclear weapons, but his weapons cannot destroy the antimaterial world. The antimaterial particle is more clearly explained in the following lines. Quote, "It is neither cut into pieces by any material weapon, nor is it burned by fire, nor is it moistened by water, nor withered, nor dried up, nor evaporated in the air. It is indivisible, non-flammable, and insoluble. Because it is eternal, it can enter into and leave any sort of body. Being steady by constitution, its qualities are always fixed. It is inexplicable, because it is contrary to all material qualities. It is unthinkable by the ordinary brain. It is unchangeable. No one therefore should ever lament for what is an eternal antimaterial particle." Thus, unquote, thus in the Bhagavad Gita and in all other Vedic literatures, the superior energy, antimaterial principle, is accepted as the vital force or the living spirit. This is also called the jiva. This living principle cannot be generated by any combination of material elements. There are 8 material principles which are described as inferior energies, and they are: first, earth; second, water; third, fire; fourth, air; fifth, ether; sixth, mind; seventh, intelligence; and eighth, ego. Apart from these is the living force or the antimaterial principle, which is described as the superior energy. These are called energies because they are wielded and controlled by the Supreme Living Being, the personality of Godhead, Krishna. Jai, so we're going to stop here for today. The link to this book is in the description, and we will see you next time. Hare Krishna!